Welcome back, True Seeker. I want to tell a interesting and I think kind of a fun story, and I think maybe a story that could even benefit somebody else if they listen to it, especially if they're ever having relationship problems, because relationships can definitely be a challenge. I've told this story before, but now it has a new twist to it because, of course, now Sweet Lady and I have a baby girl who looks just like her mama, just like I imagined she would, and I'm glad that's exactly how it turned out. Uh, she wanted a little girl just like her, and I think that's exactly what she got. But anyhow, I was telling you guys that for months, Sweet Lady just keeps seeing 11s everywhere. 11, 11, 11. So she's been thinking for a long time that the child was going to be born on November 11th, which wasn't quite right. It ended up being born 5 days later on November 16th. And honestly, it probably still wouldn't have been born if it wasn't for a medical intervention. The baby was just too big for Sweet Lady. My mom's side of the family has big babies, and Sweet Lady's a very tiny person. And they ended up doing a C-section late last night. And my jaw about hit the floor when they said what time the baby was officially born. And if you do a C-section, it just takes minutes. I mean, it's like a 2-3 minute thing. They just cut you open, the baby's out, and boom, it's born. But yeah, when 11/11 passed and that wasn't the day, I said to Sweet Lady, I said, wouldn't it be funny if it ended up being on November 15th? And it ended up being the day after November 15th, but she essentially went into labor on November 15th. And the reason I said that's funny is because you guys might be aware, I've often said November 15th is the worst day of my life. And that's because November 15th, 2014, I came back to my house and it was broken into and everything of value was stolen. And there were a lot of valuables stolen, and everything that wasn't stolen was broken and ransacked. And it was a disaster. And it was a life-changing day in a big way, because I had a good business going at the time, and the business was sabotaged, and everything I'd built up from the business was just gone in the snap of fingers. And part of the reason that happened was because Sweet Lady and I were in a rut with our relationship. And we'd been living together for a period of time, and it was probably 2 weeks. It was probably, the beginning of that month. I'd gotten Sweet Lady an apartment nearby. It was like we weren't married yet, but we were in a relationship and we both liked each other a lot, but we were in a rut, and it was kind of like a separation thing. So I got her an apartment not too far away for her to have her own apartment. And I was thinking about getting out of the relationship, but I knew she was a special one. And so for about 2 weeks, we didn't really see each other at all. She was in her apartment and I was still at my house. And it was the night of November 14th that she called me that night. She was really lonely and she didn't like being separated, and she really wanted me to come over to her apartment. I should have just had her come over to my house. I don't know why. Anyway, that's not the way it went. I went over to her place and I stayed with her that night. And the thing was, I went over there late too, and I came back to my house early because I've always been a workaholic, but I wasn't even gone that long. But when I came back to my house in the morning and I had a million things to do, the door was kicked open, and again, the house was sabotaged and everything of value was stolen. And in a way, had we never done the separation, and that whole scenario wouldn't have come up. And anyway, the point was that day was a disaster. And while there was a lot that was bad about it, I could almost argue that looking back, that maybe, I say it was the worst day of my life, but maybe without really, in a way, it might have been one of the best days of my life too, because see, this is what that day brought about that was good. A lot of people thought Sweet Lady was just a straight up gold digger, and I knew she wasn't. I started dating her before my business took off, and once the business took off, I had a lot of resources, and Sweet Lady, you could say she was getting a little bit greedy. My mom was like real annoyed because my mom saw the list that she requested for a Christmas back then, and she couldn't believe what she was asking from me. She was like, oh my God, who asked for all this kind of stuff? And to make a long story short, Sweet Lady used to really like expensive purses and whatnot. And anyhow, When she moved out into the apartment, I told her that all of her valuables, she should probably still keep at my house anyway, because it's probably safer at my house than a new apartment. And anyhow, when the house got robbed, she lost all of her stuff too. And I lost everything I had. I lost the money I had. I lost the business I had. And but again, sweet lady, she didn't just run off because I lost everything. In fact, it was like she somehow, some way, it made our relationship better. And soon after, she ended up moving back in, and yeah, we've been together ever since. We've lived together ever since. But somehow that situation, which was very painful, it made me realize that um, I don't know if I'm telling this story the best way, but it just made me realize that she was the special person that I thought she was. And again, that part of the by the way, I didn't mention that part of the reason I wanted the separation is because I thought it. I was starting to like hear what the critics of Sweet Lady were saying. She was getting carried away with like financial requests and things she wanted me to get her, and I started to think like, God, is this the only reason she's still with me now? Because I'm making good money and I can buy her these things. And God, she asks a lot. And you guys know the way women can be sometimes. You do a million nice things for them, and then you do one little dumb thing, and they're like so mad at you and treating you like you're the worst person in the world. Sometimes it's the nature of women. But it was like, it was a few things like that just had me thinking like, do I want to stay in this relationship? Oh my God, I can't even do this little thing without getting scolded after I did all these 10 nice things for her. Anyway. Like I said, I've always known Sweet Lady's a special person. You know, she's beautiful inside and out. And for a while there was this, you could say, financial greed type of thing going on. But when I got cleared out that day, it was like she didn't care that she lost all of her nice things. And ultimately, all she wanted was the relationship back, the relationship we started with. And we've never really had a problem since then. We've always been on the same page. And I feel like we've made a really nice life for ourselves together, working together, helping each other out. But yeah, it was that day where, everything got flipped upside down. That was November 15th, 2014. And then this year, November 15th, 2024, late in the evening. And it was right around 11 p.m. Funny enough, after she saw these 11s, that she started to contract and was like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. I need to go to the hospital. And the thing is, once you hit the 10th anniversary, that means you begin the 11th year since that. So right now, for her and I, we're in the 11th year since we hit that crucial moment in our relationship. And at the beginning of the year when she first got pregnant, we'd been together for more than 11 years at the time, but we hadn't hit the 12th anniversary. So there's just a lot of 11 stuff. And then, of course, the child is born in the 11th month. But yeah, I just thought of all the days that she could have gone into labor. It does seem very interesting that it landed literally on the 10th anniversary of that, as we begin the 11th chapter since that day, if you will. And yeah, I would just say that, relationships, again, they can be very difficult. And a lot of people, when they start a relationship, they see all the good things in somebody and they're really happy in the relationship. And then maybe some things come up and then you're not so sure that you like this person anymore. Oh, people tend to fixate on the negative things. But again, I'd say if you do meet somebody and you really do see the great qualities, like to me, the things that I loved about Sweet Lady when we first started dating was that she was just so straightforward and direct. There was just no BS about her. She told you exactly what she was thinking. And, just a funny, like I said, on the first date with Sweet Lady, she looked at me at one point and she was like, you look kind of slow, not like retarded kind of slow, but like physically kind of slow. And I thought, really? She goes, I'd like to race you. I think I can beat you in a race. And I was like, are you serious? Right now you want to race? She's like, yeah, I want to race to that tree down there. I was like, are you kidding me right now? But she wasn't kidding. And she really did want to race, and she got absolutely smoked. And I have a feeling had I not won that race, that would have been the end of the date and she would have been on to the next guy. But I don't know, just little quirky things like that and just how direct she is. But, and, and again, I mean, there's better. She's just very honest and she's funny and she's smart. And I've just always had a good time with her. And of course, you know, she's a pretty little thing too. But, yeah, I mean, I think back and had things played a little bit differently, she could have not been part of my life. And um, sometimes I also think back and wish that we'd never separated, and I just wonder how things would have been too. But like I said, from losing everything that day, it showed to me that, okay, all these people in my ear saying, sweet lady's nothing but a gold digger, and she's only hanging around you because you got money now, and that's all she really likes about you anymore. I had a good friend in my ear saying that, and then, I'm not even going to bring up other people who were saying that because they might watch the video and then they get upset every time they hear it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, relationships, problems will arise. But if you know that you found somebody who's special and they make you happy, you might find periods of your life where that isn't the case. But again, when problems come up, you really should you really should try to solve them if the person is important to you. And, you know, looking back, that was not a fun day, but I'm glad we persevered past that day. And, you know, on the 10th anniversary of all those days, for us to begin the labor process late that evening, in a way, it was like I went over. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I go back and it was like the exact same minute that she went into labor that it was 10 years ago that I showed up at her place because she was lonely and wanted me to come over after we'd pretty much been totally separated for 2 weeks. It was, you know, it was late in the evening in both regards, but yeah. Anyhow, the other thing that just was, if you have never had a child before, and for people who know who used to follow me, I used to say, like, I'm not sure I'm ever going to have a child. I love children, and I've worked with children in all kinds of capacities. I worked in group homes, teen homeless shelters. I've taught. I love working with children, but I always debated on if I would ever want to bring a child into this world because of how messed up it is. As I've gotten older, I ultimately decided that, you know, if the world's ever going to become a better place, you know, good people are going to have to raise good children. And it can be difficult bringing in a child into a world with all the problems it's facing. But like I said, I mean, if you have to, in my opinion, it's just that thing about, like, is the glass half empty or is it half full? You got to look at it like it's half full. Because if you don't have optimism, I mean, then the worldview becomes like, what is the point? If you don't have some kind of optimism in the world, even if it's hard to have optimism about the way the world is, it really becomes, what is the point? And it's just like how I pushed for now over 11 years doing this work. You know, I mean, it's always seemed like a major uphill battle, but I've always maintained optimism that the world wasn't always this way and it can get better. So that's why you keep pushing. And anyhow, just what, by the way, if you ever get a C-section, I don't know if they do it like this at every hospital, but here's how they did it for Sweet Lady. They set up a curtain, and Sweet Lady, the curtain is like draped down and coming like right around her neck. So her head's on one side of the curtain. That they had me, the father, you know, go on the side of the curtain where Sweet Lady is before they begin surgery. And again, it's a very quick surgery. Like the doc said he said it's only going to take about 2-3 minutes. And I heard him when he began, and it felt like it didn't even last 20 seconds before he was announcing the time of birth. I was like, was that even a minute? But you know, he's saying the time of birth, and then you know, then one of the doctors in the room scurried over and said, "Oh, come, follow, watch him clean up the baby." And I got to see that whole process. But then once they cleaned her off and you could see how she looked, I thought, oh my God, she has her mom's nose. And then, then they brought her back over to the other side of the curtain where mom was, so mom could see her. And then it was just, I just realized that there's no way this was the wrong decision, just seeing, her and her mom together. And yeah, in a way, it's just like I dreamt it up. I dreamt that this little baby was going to be a miniature sweet lady, and she absolutely is. And in the moment, I couldn't help myself. Just instantly when I saw her and her mom together, just just like little waterfall from the eyes for a moment. Just couldn't help it. It was just like, it's one of those beautiful things. But yeah, also, you know what I like to do on this channel too? I just love numbers. And here's all the things that are so interesting about the baby being born November 16th. Well, first of all, they announced the time of birth at 10:41 p.m. And realize, the baby still probably wouldn't have popped out had they not done the C-section. But 10:41 was an interesting time because the baby was born exactly 41 weeks after what they said was the conception date. If you've ever gotten pregnant before, they'll do the ultrasounds and the tests, and they'll say, okay, it looks like this is when conception happened. So they told her at the beginning of the year that the conception date was February 3rd. And that's interesting because that's the 34th day of the year, and that's how old Sweet Lady is right now. She's 34. But the baby was born exactly 41 weeks after that day at 10:41 p.m. And that's how old I am right now. I'm 41. So I thought, she's 34. I'm 41. 34th day of the year, exactly 41 weeks later. And in light of her looking just like her mom, of course, in gematria, mom equals 41, mother equals 34. And while the baby does look exactly like her mom, the way the baby takes after me is, it's almost the exact same size that I was. The other day, the doctor thought it was going to be 11 pounds, possibly more. It ended up being 9 pounds, 9 ounces, and still a pretty big baby. And 21 inches long. So the baby's 9 pounds, 9 ounces, 21 inches. My mom went and looked, and she always says I was close to 10 pounds. She went up and looked what I officially was. She said that I was 9 pounds, 12 ounces, 22 inches. So big baby, very similar to our little girl, Ruby. And when I was born, I had these big chubby cheeks too that went away in time. And right now, Ruby's got these big chubby cheeks. So that might also come from our side of the family. And yeah, that was one piece of it, the 4134 thing. And again, Sweet Lady, she's got the same birthday as George Orwell, which is June 25th. From her birthday to the baby's birthday was 144 days later, that magic time number. I've talked about how my parents are born 144 days apart. And again, 144, of course, it's a biblical number. It's a Fibonacci number. It's got a square root of 12. Sweet Lady's name that most people are colored by is May. May has that gematria 12, just like baby. So she's born exactly 144 days after her mom's birthday. And then for me, Sweet Lady's a Cancer, and I'm a Cancer. She's born at the beginning of Cancer. I'm born at the end of Cancer. Her birthday's June 25th. Mine's July 21st. So in the same cipher that baby and May are 12, Cancer is 26. Her birthday and mine are 26 days apart. And we met in the time of Cancer too. We met at a 4th of July get together once upon a time. And, Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? Cancer is ruled by the moon. That's why they had the moon landing in the time of Cancer in 69, when the astrological symbol for Cancer looks like 69. But the night that she went into conception was the night of the full moon. Friday, November 15th was the full moon date. And, or hold on, it was Friday night, right? It's Sunday. I've hardly slept for the last 3 days, so I'm trying to keep it all together. But labor started the day of the full moon. And then 144 days after her birthday, if I'm born 26 days later, that means The baby popped out 118 days after my birthday. That's interesting because in the Jewish gematria cipher, Cancer equals 118, right? So we're both Cancers. Cancer's ruled by the moon. Baby pops out on this 10th anniversary, the beginning of the 11th year since this happened to us, this crucial date in both of our lives where we both really did lose a lot that day. Technically, everything she lost, I'd bought for her, but it was her property. And yeah, it's just life. It's just like, how does it even happen like this? And the thing is, you guys, we were trying to get pregnant for quite a while before she finally got pregnant. And it was funny because she thought what I was telling, but the reason she didn't get pregnant for so long is right after, making sweet love, she'd go pee instantly. And that's so she doesn't get a UTI. But every time she do that, I say, don't you know that's like the old wives' trick to not get pregnant, just peeing right away? And she's like, oh, that doesn't make any difference. So the first time she went to the clinic to talk to the doctor about not getting pregnant, she told her about how she's peeing right away. He goes, oh, that could be it right there. He said, sometimes you do that. That'll keep you from getting pregnant. So sure enough, it was like, in no time right after that, she stopped doing that, and then she got pregnant almost right away. But yeah, and then I told you guys this story actually a while ago when she decided she wanted to get pregnant. Just a weird thing about that was where we moved to. Remember where we live now? We moved we moved from the Seattle area to Yakima so that sweet lady could go to school in Yakima. And then when she got hired, they moved her out east further near where we are now in Prosser, Washington. So we moved out here. But I was telling you guys this story from a year and a half ago now, not this past spring, but the spring before. What I understand is where they built these homes here, there used to be some trees here and they cut them all down, right? And the sad thing about cutting down trees is then birds don't have their place to nest like they did before. So you see in these homes here, birds are always trying to nest here. And if you go like on my property, there's some small trees, and every little small tree, there's a bird nest. And they like to set up a nest right under the little covered part right before our front door. And I've just let them do it, so the front door area in the springtime has a lot of bird poop and it's kind of messy. But now 2 springs in a row, we've just let a bunch of baby birds be born out there. But it was last spring when sweet lady was seeing the baby birds just chirping right at our doorstep. She was like, oh my God, I feel like I need some babies. And, again, just being the numbers guy that I am, I just remember when the birds were born. If you guys don't know the story about me, I've only had one pet in my life. And it was a pet bird, and it was one. And the reason we had it is because we found it in our backyard. It was a cockatiel, and we could not find the owner. And my mom grew to have a liking. My mom's a very clean lady, so we never had any pets. But she ended up liking this bird, so we kept the bird, and we just called it Buddy. And it was supposed to be a temporary name. We were just calling it Buddy until we could find its owner. But we never found the owner. And I just remember that when the baby birds were born for the first time last spring, right on our doorstep. I just had to look. I was like, God, I wonder how many days until my birthday it is. And I was like, look at that. These birds were born 56 days before my birthday. And I just happened to notice that in Gematria, Buddy equals 56 like Hubbard. And I thought, what are the odds of that? Baby birds born 56 days before my birthday. And you guys might remember, I even did a short video on it. One of the birds fell out of the nest, and I tried to put it back up in the nest, and it created... Anyway, it was the first time I'd had like a bird on my hand or in my hand since I had a pet bird. And so anyway, I was telling this story a year and a half ago. And anyhow, that whole experience though made sweet lady like realize like, man, maybe we do need some kids. We need some kids in our nest. So anyway, all these kind of just like weird life occurrences. Just one thing leading to another. And sweet lady has always said that once she has got established in her career and finished school, that she probably would want to have kids someday. But definitely the bird thing last spring planted a major seed in her head. And it was shortly after that she decided she wanted to start trying to have kids, but she didn't get pregnant until, again, February of this year. And that's because I'm pretty sure she was peeing out our babies every time for months. But in a way, you look at it, it's like, well, God, it just feels like it was all meant to be this way and just like symbolic without ever planning it. I mean, had she gotten pregnant right away, the baby would have been born like, earlier this spring. But instead, it ends up essentially being right at the time, essentially one day after one of the most memorable days, I guess, in our relationship and our story together, and for all the wrong reasons. But yeah, just life. I mean, just life. It's just something else. And I don't know if I told this story quite right, but again, I haven't gotten too much sleep in the last 3 hours. I'm doing my best. It's just, and I do need to get back to the hospital too. We're doing one more night at the hospital. She's under observation because of the C-section. It's crazy, man. You get C-section, you bleed a lot afterwards. She's been taking some iron supplements because she's got like blood leaking out. But I guess that's normal when you get a C-section. And right now I think she's taking a nap, and I think the baby is too. So, but I better get back there pretty soon. But yeah, I wanted to share this story, and again, I guess the key elements of the story are that if you do find somebody special and you realize they're special, there could come a time 6 months down the road, a year down the road, a year and a half down the road, 2 years down the road where you forget, or maybe not, you don't forget, but something might come up in the relationship or something, and you start thinking like, oh, or you forget about what you love so much about that person, and you fixate on the thing you don't. And I think a lot of people end up making these mistakes. And again, if you got something special, that it's not going to be perfect. Nothing is, but you should do whatever you got to do, I guess, to make sure you keep that special thing in your life. And yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, I couldn't have told you that, I couldn't have told you on November 15th, 2014, what life would look like a decade later, but it ended up being a beautiful thing with us still together, and then having a beautiful baby girl. And again, her name is Ruby. And I saw a lot of you guys, you thought her birthday might be November 17th, but it's actually the 16th. And to me, that seems fitting. I focus so much of my life talking about numerology, not so much because I care about numerology, but more because I want people to wake up to the tyrants who rule over us. And they're clearly very into numerology. And again, like I told you guys, I don't think I would have figured this out if it wasn't for Sweet Lady. When her and I first started dating, she really wanted me to read the Bible. And I did, because that was the one page we weren't on when we first started dating. She was still very much into Christianity. And I told her that I came up as a Lutheran. So, I was definitely familiar with Christianity and the Bible, but I hadn't really read it since I was 12 years old, which was true at the time. And I just remember when I started reading it, when her and I first started dating, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember being a kid and wondering what all these numbers are about in the Bible. There's so many specific numbers with no explanation for why. But yeah, it was Sweet Lady who in a way got me to look more into that as well. And I've said that 1,000 times, that if it wasn't for Sweet Lady, I probably never would have figured out this whole Gematria thing that I spend so much time educating about. And then, yeah, just the birthday being 11/16, I always call her Sweet Lady, don't I? And if there's a number that I would say, what number do you associate with sweet? I mean, I think almost everybody would say 16, sweet 16. So, fitting date. And I guess one other thing that stands out to me about November 16th is it's the day leaving 45 days left in the year. It was an accident. It wasn't planned, but it was an observation I had when her and I first got engaged and married. And a lot of people some of you guys were like, what? You guys are married? I felt like annoyed that you never told me that. Again, Sweet Lady likes to keep things private. And I mostly, well, I keep a lot of things private, but Sweet Lady, you guys might recall in 2018, she was gone for a while. She went back to visit her family that's in Burma and Thailand. And it's a dangerous thing to do, to go back to Burma, because she came over here as a refugee, but she hadn't seen her family in, I forget, over a decade. And Sweet Lady, like her culture, it's very taboo to live with another man unless you're married. And she went back in 2018. She'd been, living with me since like the start of 2013. So for 5 years, her family didn't know that she was living with another man. It's not supposed to be that way. But so that was kind of a secret that she kept from her family. And she didn't really communicate that much with her family back then either. The refugee status, technology differential. But when she was going back, she wanted to be able to tell her family that she was married. And I wasn't sure about that because I always wanted her to be a part of my life. But even in the past, I said, like, I'm not sure about marriage either. Like, I just feel like people should be together. Like, the marriage is this institution of the state. But I realized it would be good for her and her family. So it felt like the right thing to do from not being selfish. And I do, like, somebody will say, well, you should get married because, man, she could leave you and take everything. But I really do trust Sweet Lady, and I don't think she's that kind of person. And like I said before, I don't think you'll ever see that Sweet Lady and I ever got divorced. I think we'll live a nice, happy life until the end of our time. And I'm pretty sure I will be right about that, but time will tell. And anyhow, right before she left for Burma, I surprised her and proposed. And then she thought with a ring, she could essentially fib a little bit and tell her family that we were married with intentions that we were going to get married soon after she got back. And that's exactly what we did. It was just, there wasn't enough time to get married before she had to leave. So, anyhow, but she started school right when she got back, and school was so busy that she's like, you know what, we should just get married as soon as winter break comes around. So I just scheduled our marriage day at the court. That's the way we got married. We actually just had and here, funny enough, you guys, like, I didn't even tell my family that we got married because, if you're out there, Mom, you might recall you and Sweet Lady have had some tiffs. My mom and Sweet Lady now get along, which is good news. But if anyone feels like you got left out, my own family didn't even know that we got married for several years. But this is what's funny about it looking back. The day that I proposed to Sweet Lady was June 1st, 2018, right? And it was just because she was leaving the very next day for Burma. Okay. So I was just like, I got to do this, and because this is what she wanted, and make this as close to marriage as possible where she goes back and talks to her family. So we proposed June 1st, 2018, and it was kind of like a wing of the moment thing. And then the first Saturday when she got done with all of her school stuff was December 15th, 2018. And I look back now and I said, actually, I kind of realized it back then once we did it, because, I always look at the number things. I was like, look at how that worked out from the proposal date to the wedding date ended up being 197 days later. And that's the 45th prime, and marriage equals 45. And then I was like, wait a minute, June 1st, 2018, that day even had 45 date numerology. And anyway, now we have a baby, and officially, I guess it's popped out on the day, leaving 45 days left in there. So, like, none of that was intentional, but part of me looks at these things too, and just because again, like I've said, you guys, this Kabbalistic belief that God created the world with numbers, letters, and words, it came from somewhere, right? It didn't just come from somewhere arbitrary. It's like something happened in the world to enough people that somehow there was this collective idea that somehow, some way, there's numerical patterns to our life, and this is a sign of creator. But yeah, I look at that now. Okay, we got essentially we ended up getting engaged on a 45 date. We get married 197 days later, the 45th prime. And you know what? December 15th, 2018, it's not the same date numerology path, but that day would have had a lesser date numerology of 45 too. 12, 15, 18. 12 plus 15 plus 18 is 45. So yeah, and now the baby pops out on the day, leaving 45 days left in the year. And there was quite a gap between the the wedding and the baby. It's almost 6 whole years later. And let me think about that for a minute. Huh. So we get our first baby 29 days. 29 is 11, isn't it? In numerology, 2 plus 9 is 11. 29 days before our wedding anniversary. And it'll be the sixth anniversary. So, yeah. But anyway, the other thing I want to say, you guys, is thank you to everyone who sent all the nice words and blessings. And I never asked anybody to ever send anything for the baby, but once some of you guys got wind that we were having a baby, things just started to show up in the P.O. box. And the woman out there who sent so many gifts, again, thank you for your generosity. I'd like to know who this person is, because I'm like, before I ever even announced that it was a little girl, this woman was sending baby girl shoes and just all kinds of things for a little girl in the mail. She was sending it before I even knew it was a girl. Sweet lady told me it was a girl on Father's Day. So, yeah, whoever you are out there that sent all the things for the little girl, I mean, just don't doubt a women's intuition. But if anybody was ever going to tell me they were a psychic, and she told me, I'd believe it in a second, because I don't know how you sent so many things for a little girl without like even me knowing. I guess somehow, some ways. I guess somebody might say, well, it's only a 50-50 shot, but this lady sent several gifts, and she knew from the jump. So, well, looking out at the chat, thank you very much for the generosity. Shout out to Rick James. Thank you, as always, Rick James, for gifting a membership. Oscar Garcia. I'll get Rick's name. Why does it? Oh, there it goes. It shows up when I click Rick. You guys know Rick James, always gifting the memberships. Thank you, Rick. Oscar Garcia said, "Congrats, my brother. I appreciate that." Yeah, everything's been great right now. Just one of the things that we're dealing with, and I guess it's pretty common for a lot of mothers, is just like, sweet lady, the breast milk has not exactly started to flow yet. And I forget what this word is. A lot of women, before the breast milk comes, something else comes out, and I forget what the word is. I haven't heard it enough times for it to stick in my mind. But she is producing a little bit of that, and man, our girl, she's reminded me of my sister's first child. Her boy Sam. He was just the angel baby, just quiet and calm and content, and almost never cried. That's how our little girl's been so far. Again, she hasn't been out for it's about 3 hours and I guess 14 minutes based on what the clock says over there, until she's been out in this world for 24 hours. But she's been a sweet little angel, and just so, like I said, calm and content, just hardly a little coup here. And oh yeah, I just remembered something funny that happened last night too that just blew my mind about nature. I gotta remember to tell you that too in a second. But I guess if anything has just not been quite perfect yet. She was trying to feed tonight, and she started to get flustered, and she started to cry out. It was the first time she cried out, and what we realized was going on is she's trying to feed, but whatever was coming out earlier wasn't coming out at this point. And the doctors have all said, oh, this is happening a lot. Don't worry. In probably 24, 48 hours, you'll have a total flow, and this won't be a problem at all. But yeah, just the little girl is getting flustered because she's sucking away and nothing's coming. So the doc suggested just formula for the moment. And I didn't want the little girl to have to drink formula, because I've heard formula is not the best thing. But at the same time, you don't want your baby to starve either. It almost made me think that hospitals should have like almost like a mother dairy on hand. I wonder if some hospitals do, honestly. Like mothers there that just like submit their own breast milk for the community for anybody who might need some, rather than have formula in the back. I almost feel like just being a parent now is like, I almost want to create that place, the spot where mothers who are willing to donate their breast. It probably already exists. It's just that I asked it there. I was like, there's not by chance somehow some other women's breast milk on hand. Is there like, no, sorry, we don't do that. It's not, man. I think I'd be happier with that than formula. But yeah, again, you can't really complain though. It's been she's very healthy. She looks way older than a newborn baby. She's big, and they told us that in terms of the development that she was way ahead of the schedule. She was in the womb for 41 weeks, but they said in terms of development and size, they were telling us weeks ago that she's like weeks ahead. So, she almost looks like she's a month old, but she just came out last night. But yes, thank you again, Oscar. And hey, Daria, good to see you. Appreciate that. Yeah, diaper fund, no doubt about it. I was definitely cleaning some diapers. It's funny. I have a lot of experience cleaning diapers because I used to help my sister. My sister has 4 children. She's 12 years older than me. I became an uncle when I was a senior in high school. Part of the reason I had to move up from Portland to Seattle is because I couldn't have a life. I was just spending all my time helping my sister take care of her kids. But so my sister, she's kind of held some resentment ever since I left Portland. She liked having me around to help out with the kids. But I used to help do the diapers for those children all the time. So my diaper skills, they're still there. I still remember which way to wipe and not wipe. By the way, last night we had a night nurse that's like, make sure you don't wipe towards her vagina when she poops. And then as she says that and she's showing she wipes, and she did just have a little, potty. Then she wipes right towards. I was like, okay, lady, like how long? Your shit must have been going too long because you just did exactly what you told me not to do, and I already knew that anyway. But oh man, what are you gonna do? But yeah, everything's been good, and she is just a little bundle of joy. So Nick, super generous. You did not have to do that. I appreciate that. Congrats on the newest truth seeker. Indeed. Indeed. Truth does not exist that he knew right out of the gate it was going to be a little girl. You're right on the money. I thought, see, so Sweet Lady and I have always talked about if we had kids, what we would name them. And we've always liked the names Ruby for a girl and Ace for a boy. And I thought initially with all the 11 stuff, I thought that was a sign it was little Lacey because, of course, in cards, Ace is worth 11. But you know where the connection is with Ruby and 11? The name Ruby, well, the small way Ruby's 21, like she's 21 inches long. Moon and Lunar are 21. Her dad's born on the 21st of July. But yeah, they said she's 21 inches. But the big way, Ruby's 66. And of course, 66, the 11th triangular number. And funny enough, this year Father's Day fell on June 16th, 2024. Man, that was the date with 66 numerology. That was the day that Sweet Lady revealed to me that we were having a little Ruby. So I thought, what a perfect day. Father's Day fell on 66 date numerology. Find out about Ruby. And the other thing that's funny about June 16th, the day Father's Day fell on this year, that's Tupac's birthday. I still remember when I borrowed some lyrics from the song Dear Mama, the Tupac song. My mom didn't know that I borrowed lyrics from that song, but I stuck them in a Mother's Day card. Something about being appreciated. And my mom always loved that Mother's Day card, but she never knew that some of the words in that card were borrowed from a song on the radio. So I find out I'm a father on Tupac's birthday anniversary. I guess there's some kind of irony to that as well. Thank you as well very much, Brandon D. Appreciate that a lot, man. Thank you. Brandon D. Pound of payment with us all over in LA. Thank you, Brandon. Well, I don't know if that helps or not. Iron, God, the hospital, the food actually that they've given us isn't that bad, but every single time they give you food, there's some very sugary item. The breakfast comes with sugary stuff. The lunch comes with a brownie cup with whipped cream on it. Dinner ice cream with syrup. It's just like, God, that's what's crazy about just our Western medicine system. Is like, okay, we're supposed to be at a place for like wellness. Okay, I can understand having a dessert every now and then, but man, every meal they serve you some kind of like super sugary thing. It's like they want you to come back with diabetes. They're creating recurring customers. Sweet lady. Again, it was years ago that she said she couldn't do the vegan vegetarian thing anymore because she said it was bad for her teeth and gums. So she doesn't get a whole lot of red meat, though. I don't know. Maybe there is something to that with red meat because I'm thinking about it. She doesn't eat a whole lot of red meat, so perhaps to look more into that one. All right. Thank you, Faith Takes You For. Yeah. Sorry, it's smaller on my thing because I'm on my cell phone. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Maybe it says Faith Takes You Far. That would make more sense. My old tired eyes make it look like 4, but I bet it says far. Faith Takes You Far. Thank you. And I appreciate that, John Mendoza, always with the generous dollars. Yeah, Yeah, she is a lucky girl, and I guess one other thing that I want. Oh shoot, I was saying there's one other thing I want to share, and I think I already forgot it. But here, one other thing I got to share about this experience. We had the doctors trying to sell us real hard on getting the vitamin K shot. They understood us saying no to the jabs, and they said that's become the trend in town. That for the last 2 years, almost no parent wants any jabs, but they said most will still take the vitamin K shot, and we didn't want it. If you look into it, they say really it's most useful if there's a traumatic birth. If you have a C-section, you don't have a traumatic birth at all. And I was kind of able to get the doctors to chill out by just like saying things back to them. They say if you read about vitamin K, they say 1 in 11,000 children will die from not having the vitamin K shot. Isn't that kind of funny too? Because K is the 11th letter. The medical terminology of today is 1 in 11,000 will die if they don't get vitamin K. And it's almost always from a traumatic birth. It creates some kind of bleeding. And then apparently a newborn, for the first 10 days, their body doesn't produce the things that allow blood. Like, if you're bleeding, how your blood will clot so you won't bleed out. Sometimes a baby will have a traumatic birth, and then there'll be internal bleeding, and it bleeds out essentially inside. And the argument is, had that baby had a vitamin K shot, the internal bleeding would have been stopped. And anyway, but I just said to both doctors that were trying to get us to do it, I said, okay, traumatic birth, right, is where this is really most helpful. They're like, that's correct. And I said, C-section is the least traumatic. In our C-section, you didn't have to use the vacuum, because sometimes I guess in a C-section, they put a vacuum in there to pull the kid out, and that can be kind of traumatic. It could cause an internal bleeding. They didn't have to do that for ours. So I established both doctors, like, okay, so there was nothing traumatic, and you didn't have to use the vacuum. And I said, if I'm not mistaken, it says 1 in 11,000 children will die. And usually it is because traumatic birth, but 1 in 11,000 from not having the vitamin K. And they said, that's about right. And I said, okay. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm rolling the dice, and the odds are like 1 in 11,000, but maybe even better because there's nothing traumatic. And they're like, that's about right. And I said, okay. I said, I don't really feel like I'm playing with my child's life then. And I end up having a nice conversation with both doctors, and I got both doctors said they're going to look into my book that I wrote, because they both of them, again, you guys, because of the things that have gone on in recent years, even doctors are starting to have an eyebrow up about things. And like one of the doctors told me that when he was in college going to school to become a doctor, his whole thing was studying mRNA. And he said that's why he couldn't wait to go out and get the thing when it came out, because of the C-19. And he says now if he could do it all over again, he would have gotten it, because now he said, I'm not sure it was safe and effective. And I said, yeah. So no, it ended up actually being a nice conversation, but they are still, at the end of the day, they are doctors, and they're trained to do certain things and really recommend certain things, because their perspective is, they're like, listen, as far as I understand this K thing, though, there's like almost zero chance of anything going wrong. And it just protects you in that rare circumstance that, the worst could happen. And I'm like, okay, I get the logic you're saying. But I said, my argument is there's some other ingredients in there that are preservatives besides the vitamin K, right? And I'm not sure about some of those preservatives, like, say, the aluminum. And they're like, so one of the doctors was more understanding of that. The other was like, I'm telling you that's so minute. But anyway, the nice thing is, though, that doctors, because of what just went on in recent years, you can just see that they are starting to even think twice about a lot of what they have been advising. And I could even have a conversation like that with them without getting laughed out of the room, where they're actually like, neither of them knew about Billy Goat's 2010 TED Talk, I'll tell you that much, but they both said they were going to go back and watch it. I said, yeah. And I said, go watch how a few days later he was in Davos, Switzerland after that, saying that in 10 years there's going to be a pledge to jab the whole world after what he said at his 2010 TED Talk. Their eyebrows were up. I'm like, yeah, look at it. So, yeah, also did have an interesting conversation with two doctors. And I felt kind of encouraged about that. I know there were a lot less doctors saying things like that not all that long ago. So that's the thing too, you guys, about just what's going on in this world, and how if you do keep pushing, you might end up changing the world. You might end up getting doctors like that could change the world. Thank you, Nolan Addison. They said, congrats, Zach. Glad to have found your channel at 16 years old. How about that? Going with the sweet baby born on the 16th. Can't believe how fast 7 years went. Yeah, tell me about it. Hey, you're 23 right now. You're still very young. You're in some of the best years of your life right now. Man, I'll tell you what, I love to be in 26. That was right before I knew Gematria too. I didn't know how special that number was, but I remember just having a really great year at 26. Enjoy your youth, and again, make good use of it too, because before you know it, you're going to be 41 like me. Trust me. I remember being 23 like it was yesterday. I can't believe it was that long ago. I remember just like dumb little mistakes I made that I always will come up in my mind and go like, man, I wish I could have played that card differently that day. You always, the butterfly effect. What would have happened in my life if I had just done that one little thing different that one day? But yeah, make good decisions. Use your time wisely. Time flies. Enjoy your youth. Don't let it go to waste. That's what I feel bad about too with this world. I mean, there's so many young people. I feel like their lives are going to waste. Like sitting in front of a screen all day. That's not really life. In a way, here's the pot calling the kettle black, because I have been sitting in front of screens, but for a purpose, like realizing the sacrifice I am making, because it is a way to get out knowledge and information and try and change the world. But yeah, and again, the thing at the end of the day that does motivate me to want to change the world is really what it is for kids. It makes me sad that the new culture is kids stay inside in front of screens and they don't go out and play outside and have fun with the people in their community, or maybe even get to know the people in their community. I mean, nobody's outside to even know who your neighbors are anymore. But hey, and by the way, please don't ever send a super chat either again, because that was very generous of you. And make sure you save your money as a young person. But thank you very much also for your generosity. I'm just saying, as a young person, 23, you must be right now. Save your money for your generation. Things are wickedly expensive, and they're making it harder and harder for all the young people, which you're definitely one of those young people. So, but I do accept your gift, and that's very generous of you. Thank you. He said, you've made a huge impact on my perception of the world, and I thank you. You're going to be a great father. I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess that's the thing too. It's like, I know what I wanted to say. There was something I wanted to say, and I almost forgot it. So one of the doctors that I was talking to, he started to bring up his children in his mid-20s. And then when he said that, I said, wait a minute. I said, I got to ask how old you are. Because I was looking at this guy and thinking him and I were close to the same age. And I was thinking he's maybe a little bit older than me. And you would never believe it. He was 47. You guys, what is 47? It just happened to be the age of the doctor I was talking to today. But he has a 25-year-old, a 24-year-old, and a 23-year-old. So, like, okay, so he started popping out kids when he was 22. But he was saying that, him doing that, having kids at a young age, it really motivated him to do very well in life and go pursue a medical career. And he said what had happened to him in his earlier life is 2 of his brothers had died from a rare disease. And long story short, he thinks it had something to do with the environment that they grew up in, which makes sense. And he might have been somehow benefited to not, take on the toxicity that his brothers did. But it wanted him to in his mind, he wanted to go out and solve medical problems. And then when he had children at a young age, it made him want to make a good life for his children. So it made him go work hard in school and excel and become I guess he must have had to get the loans and go through medical school. I don't know how he pulled all that off. And in a way, that sounds really impressive to me, to have children and do medical school, which isn't easy. But the point I'm making is, I think, our ancestors had children at a lot younger ages. I mean, our ancestors probably started popping out their children when they were teenagers. I mean, if you really think about it, a long time ago, like go back, more like not even to the caveman days, but just more agricultural era. People started having children at a lot younger age. And of course, you have a child, it's going to want to make you do better as a person for the sake of your child, or at least it should. And I think in most people, that's the natural human reaction. And just like I say right now, from being online for all these years and putting out information, as people know, I'll go on rants, and some of those rants are probably uncalled for and not always doing the best for the work or myself. And of course, my trolls love to collage those things and put them together to make it look like I'm the worst person ever. But had I had a child this whole time, I probably never would have went on a rant like that or said any of those things. Got me thinking, like, of course I'm not going to say that. I don't ever want my child to hear me saying things like that. So I'd also say that out there to people who have the idea, and trust me, I understand your idea of why, because I've had the same idea in my head for a long time, that the world's messed up, and why would I ever want to bring children into it? Again, I'd say the answer to that is, if we're going to make a better world, it's going to need good parents who raise good children that might be the difference that's needed. And I know some people just think that it's impossible, but I'd say nothing is impossible. And really, if we are going to change the world, we need more good people in it. And who's going to bring about those good people other than you? So, and again, just having a child in the world might make you do better and reach the goals that you have set forth for yourself more rapidly. Or it might make you take on new goals and set higher bars than you've set for yourself today. And that might also be good for you. And of course, I mean, there are people in the world that have children and they become deadbeat parents, but that doesn't have to be your story. So anyhow, I do need to get going. This stream's already almost an hour, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Blizzard Peak. Thank you guys for your generosity. You know what? That's perfect, man. 11 super chats as we talk about the 11 in this story. And yes, the little girl's middle name is going to be 11. Sweet lady is fond of the middle name 11. I right now I just keep calling her Ruby May, though. Her first name's Ruby, and her mom's birth name isn't actually May, but that's what she always got by, and she looks just like a little May, so I like calling her Ruby May right now. That's her little nickname, Ruby May. So, I did see somebody send a Cash App as well. Thank you very much, Alexander. And thank you very much, Jared, as well. I see both your guys' Cash Apps. Thank you. All right, you guys, I do need to, I need to get back to the hospital. So we got one more night at the hospital, and then sweet Ruby comes home tomorrow, assuming all goes to plan. And hopefully mom starts, milking, so we don't ever have to give sweet girl formula again. And it was funny watching her drink the formula, though. It was fun. Oh, yeah. Oh, hold on. I got to tell you guys one more thing. This is funny. First of all, it's funny watching her drink the formula because she was having to work so hard on mama's dispensers, if you will, to get anything to come out. So she's sucking away to get fed, sucking. But, man, she sucks on the bottle with the formula, and just this flood of milk comes out. She was, like, trying to figure it out. She's like, what in the world? Oh, man, just the brand new to the world, trying to understand things. She's like, how come sucking this is so hard? And when I suck this, I'm, like, flooded with this fake milk. But this was the thing. This was the thing that just made me laugh last night. So, sweet lady had a C-section. So when we were done with that, they had me take the baby back to the room, and then they're working on sweet lady stitching her back up and whatnot. And she didn't come to the room for probably another 25 or 30 minutes. And what was hilarious is when they wheeled sweet lady in, they had her on like one of the flatbeds as they wheeled her into the room. And when she came in, she said something like, "Where's my Ruby darling?" or something like that. And, I'm holding Ruby, she's in my arms like this looking up. But as soon as she heard her mom's voice, she just with her little lips started doing like this suck thing, right? Like she's trying to suck some milk, but she's just like trying to suck it right out of the air as soon as she hears her mom's voice just sucking all over the place. And I mean, of course she's been listening to our voices in the time she's been in her mom, but it just shows you how nature is, right? Because she's just brand new to the world at this point. She's been out of her mom's womb for probably not even an hour when that happened. But just as soon as she heard mom's voice, as soon as she came in the room, just sucking all over the place, just sucking all the air out of the room. And they say some children have trouble learning how to latch onto mom's nipples to feed. Not this one. It was just like, man, like she'd done it 1,000 times. So. That's our little Ruby. All right, Truth Seeker. Yeah, for all you young people who don't think you want a child, I mean, hey, I respect whatever anyone thinks. I just realized I used to be that way, and assuming they don't, assuming the horrible things don't happen in the world, I think it will be a very good thing for myself, of course, and us as a family. So never say never, and again, glass half full rather than glass half empty is a better way to go about life. So, all right, you guys, have a good rest of your evening, and until next time, True Seeker.